very first live episode taping of Now Innovating, Research Impact Series at the University of Calgary. I'm your host, Julia MacGregor. For this episode, I'm joined by 4 guests who are making an impact in circular plastics, and our panelists have all been invited by our university's Industry Liaison Office research, the team that facilitates and grows applied research partnerships between companies and researchers. So I'm really excited for you to meet our panel and the discussion we're going to have today. So let's meet them now. So Tammy, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Tammy Schwass. I'm the Executive Director of the Alberta Plastics Recycling Association, and I'm very happy to be here to chat today.
So I'm Eric. I am a manager of Triple Fee Trading Limited, locally manufactured. We do plastic bags, but at the same time, we're recycling plastic as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Rohen Prinsloo, a new faculty member in the chemistry department at U Calgary, and our research group focuses on trying to understand decomposition mechanisms of plastics.
Hello, I'm Castañeda Mogollón. I am a former president of the Sustainability Committee at the University of Calgary, and I'm currently a postdoctoral fellow at Foothills Medical Center.
Awesome. So we have 3 alumni as part of our panel as well too, and Eric running a Calgary-based company. We're really excited to have this perspective as well. So thank you all for joining us today. So let's get into it. Let's talk plastics. So really, what do we mean when we do say circular plastics? Like Tammy, could you give us a definition?
Yeah, for sure. So I think right now generally in our economy, in our society, we have a very linear economy. So we take, we make, we take, and we dispose, and that's kind of one way. And the goal with the circular economy is to really design our systems and our products so that we can reduce waste, we can remanufacture with those materials, and we can really kind of prioritize both the environmental and economic outcomes of those systems. So when I was doing some research for this presentation, I was reminded about a colleague's presentation with the recycling symbol. So I think, show of hands, I think everyone's probably familiar with the recycling Mobius loop, but how many people know that out of those 3 arrows, one of them means collection? So what you do when you take your products, put them in the blue bin, you're helping with the collection system. The second is actually resale, and the third is actually remanufacture. So the idea is we're not just recycling when we take that material and we put it in the blue box. There's a number of steps that have to happen further down the line before that material is actually considered recycled. And so that's where a lot of our members across the plastics value chain, Eric included at the University of Calgary as well in their research programs, are really working on those next steps, and it really is based on an economic model. So we really have to understand who's going to want to buy that material further down the line, how are we creating policies that incentivize or require companies or members of society to participate in that cycle, and how do we really carry that forward? So just a couple stats here before I let everyone else talk. A 2019 economic study done across Canada estimated the value of lost plastic was 7.8 billion. And so that was, again, 6 years ago, quite an old study. And so we can imagine as plastic production increases, that dollar value that we're losing is also increasing unless we take steps to capture more plastic, return those back into the economy, and really design our systems and our products for reuse, for repair, for remanufacture. And so within that, we have about a 16% recycling rate for plastics in Canada. And that's with some data and a study that was just completed by the Canada Plastics Pact and Packaging Flows in 2024. So we really have a long way to go to make that entire system circular. And I'll be able to touch on a little bit later more about how some of our members are trying to help increase that circularity.
Awesome. That was a great background of that. Does anyone have anything to add to that? That was pretty comprehensive. I didn't know about the arrows. That's something I've learned new today. So that's cool. So with that though, I guess all plastic isn't the same too. It's a spectrum. So what are the different types of plastics, and are some types of plastics better suited for a circular plastics economy?
Yeah, I'll take that one. As consumers, we know that plastics have got little numbers on them, as Tammy just alluded to, and each of those number categories, typically 1 to 7, are a class of polymer. And these plastic materials, or polymers as we know them, are made up of smaller molecules that we zip together. Think of a zipper on your jacket. Each of those teeth are the monomers, and as we piece them together, we make polymers, so really long chains of those materials The challenge with that is that each of those materials may look the same to you and I, but they're all different when we go to process them for recycling. And just to complicate things even more, we also have all these additives that are added to plastics for various purposes, either for mechanical reasons or for processing or antioxidants or UV absorbents for for food packaging, for instance. And the combination of those 7 categories plus all the subcategories underneath each of those classes really create a mixture of a very complex situation for plastic recycling.
There's also different types of recycling methods for plastics as well, right? There's like mechanical versus chemical recycling too?
Take us as an example, like we only focusing on number 4 recycling, which is, we call it the low density polyethylene. So when we go through the recycling process, like we don't want to contaminate it with any other plastic. So we have to sort it out, clean it, and recycling it. And our process is a mechanical recycling process. So like we have to melt it down and repalletizing it, and so that we can reuse it.
Okay, so it's obviously complicated. Not all plastic's the same. Got a lot going on here. So can we speak to like the plastic value chain? Tammy, I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, like because there's obviously like from raw materials to like end of life of plastics. Like, what does that really look like?
Yeah, and so in Alberta, we have great examples of that entire value chain. So we have participants and members that are manufacturing plastics, resin. So I have some examples on the back table, and if you can see these, my example, the kind of tiny little plastic pellets, this is polyethylene. So this would be a base to make plastic bags, to make plastic containers, some yogurt containers, some ketchup. Those types of containers are made from polyethylene, and it's a very common plastic, also one of the most easily recycled. And so we have resin manufacturers in the province. We also have kind of the next stage of manufacturers, companies like Eric, that are manufacturing bags, drums, totes, containers, all sorts of things. And then we have members that are recyclers that are collecting those materials, generally mechanical recycling only at this point, though we do have a few members that are venturing into that chemical space where the idea would be to take the resins and then take that plastic back into an application that could be used back into remanufacturing plastics, as opposed to just a melt and then a remold situation. And then we have members like the University of Calgary and different academic institutions. We have members of municipalities and government. So it really does take that entire circle in order to make the system really work.
Awesome. I think that was a great, intro context. I think we can hopefully all have a general idea what we mean by circular plastics. So you touched on, like members looking at chemical recycling. And Rohen, I know this is like what your research program is going to look at. Like, you're a chemist. Like, can you speak to really what are the chemical challenges that kind of do exist in recycling plastics right now, and the research that you're looking to do to advance in this area?
Right. So, as Tammy said, that these plastics are typically made up of carbon-carbon bonds. So this is the chemistry that makes them up. And these are some of the strongest bonds in organic chemistry that make up organic molecules. And this makes them especially challenging when we go back to the zipper idea. We build them by zipping them together. When we go to chemically recycle them, it's very difficult to chop them back up into their monomers or their little zippers. And instead we get different fragmentations of the zipper instead of the individual monomers that made them up. So this really complicates the chemical recycling. Not all plastics are made up of just carbon-carbon bonds. We're talking like polyethylene, polypropylenes, polystyrenes are all carbon-carbon and carbon-hydrogen bonds. There are others that contain oxygens or nitrogens, for instance. And those are a little easier to recycle, and this is why we have things like our pop bottles are majority made out of polyethylene terephthalate, because those are more easily decomposed back to their monomers, and we can then use those to make another pop bottle, for instance.
Especially in the last about 5 years, Alberta's been a really great hub for investment as well as policy moving towards a plastic circular economy. And so really we've seen some investment in research and development from Alberta Innovates and Emissions Reduction Alberta that has really spurred some companies doing research, investing in the space. And one of the policy pieces is actually extended producer responsibility. So Europe's had this for decades. Canada, other provinces in Canada have had this. BC's had it for about 10 years. Alberta just launched this April 1st. And essentially, and I could talk the whole session about EPR, but I won't bore everyone. Essentially, it makes the product manufacturer or the packaging manufacturer responsible for recycling that. And so what it does is if you put a package on the market, you need to ensure that that's collected and that that is recycled at the end of its life. And so it just changes the order of and the responsibility, whereas previously the municipalities would get all this packaging. Well, they have no control over designing it. They have no control over using any of the recycled content. And so it really tries to incentivize that full systems approach. And there's still challenges. We're working on implementation, but it's really one of the key enablers. So that's a great policy improvement. And then it's really about, as I said earlier, that business aspect. So we used to get phone calls from companies or people and they'd say, oh, there's a pile of plastic and I just want to recycle it and I'm going to start this business. And I would say, okay, well, how much do you have? Who's going to buy it from you? How long are you going to be able to keep this business going? Is it a pile from 20 years ago? Are you going to have this pile once a month? So it's really about volumes. It's about dollars and cents, and it's about making the business case. And so a lot of what we do at APRA is help facilitate those programs. One of them is an agricultural plastics pilot. And because we are able to guarantee the volumes of plastics coming in, our recycler actually set up business here in Alberta to recycle grain bags, and that's now a viable business, and we're hoping to transition that pilot into a permanent program. We also have members like Nova Chemicals that are a resin manufacturer, but are actually working on getting into the recycling industry themselves. They've just opened a film recycling plant in the United States. And this is an example of the design they're doing for some of their customers so this plastic pouch has 10 or 12 layers of film in it. And historically, this could be all sorts of different types of the plastics that Rohen was talking about. But now it's very much working towards mono-material. So this could be recycled, mechanically recycled. And they're working on how the inks perform, how the layers perform, but still have the qualities to keep food safe and distribute that the way and perform the way it needs to perform. And then we have members like Eric that are doing a lot with the recycling at their own facilities and creating products out of recycled content, which again helps drive that economic side. And we have members that are making recycled plastic out of recycled content, making drums, barrels, plastic lumber, decking, sidewalk tiles. And so the more we work on things like food grade plastic, the more we work on different research projects, we can just advance things even further.
That's amazing. Yeah. And we'll get to you, Eric, in a minute about like what you're doing. But Daniel, I'm curious too, because like Tammy was mentioning, someone being like, oh, I see plastic, I want to recycle it. And that's kind of like your journey a little bit. Like you're a bioinformatics guy, you're just like passionate about sustainability. Can you tell us about the styrofoam recycling initiative that you championed on campus to get going?
Yes, of course. So it was in 2022 that I became the president of Sustainability Committee at the University of Calgary, and me and my team and I, we saw an opportunity of doing something else. Now, as a researcher, what we get is every day, someone in any lab at the university will order either a reagent, an enzyme, or something that needs to be packed in styrofoam and with dry ice, right? Because we have to maintain that temperature when it comes to this type of reagents. The problem is that these reagents are very tiny compared to the actual size, right? Like 100 times maybe. And all of this styrofoam will go to waste and therefore the landfill, right? So we see this every day. And my team and I, what we did, we started interviewing people around campus, asking how many boxes do you get every day, right? And back then we interviewed about 13 different labs, and the average was about 250 liters of volumes per styrofoam per every day, right? So we saw this opportunity. We collected funds from the university through the Graduate Students Association, and we started a styrofoam station, recycling station in Foothills campus. Now, back then we only had 3 bins, 2 for type 4 and 1 for type 6, so polystyrene and low density polyethylene. And at the beginning, it was not really gaining motion. We had to advertise ourselves with each lab, right? And we started gaining some momentum, and people were aware of these new recycling stations. And the first part of a year, we were able to recycle about, I would say, about 109 liters of styrofoam per day, and that increased 6 months after, it increased to 600 liters per day. Wow. Right? So we started getting this sort of momentum. We started advertising this to main campus as well, and now we have a total of 7 different stations, 1 in Foothills, and the rest are here. in biological sciences, sciences theater, and architecture.
That's really fantastic. I love that so much. And like, I think that's a great example too. Like, so people on campus, students or staff that like, are looking to, take sustainability approach, and there's supports. I know there's campus as a learning lab, which is through experiential learning. So if there's other people looking for projects that can be supported by faculty, I know that's out there too. So it's just really amazing, like through your role, how you've helped champion that. So thank you for sharing that. That's fantastic. And then Eric, now I really want to learn more about what 333 Trading is doing. So like with plastic bag manufacturing, like how are you ensuring a sustainable approach and what you're...
Well, so like we are manufactured, but at the same time, like we are recycling. So we put our recycled stuff back into our productions, just to help the environment, just to help the sustainability of plastic. But there's a limitation on that because of once we recycle the plastic, there's contaminations, there's ink in it. We can only make a certain of products out of it. Like we can, at the moment, like we are still not able to make it as food grade packaging again. But we 100% like put it back into our garbage bag production line. So like keep it consistent. So making all the garbage bag that we made, make sure they are by 100% recycled material. Hopefully that will help the industry and keep the sustainability of plastics.
Very cool. That's awesome. So I guess like, we've got, a member association, we've got, community champions, doing work, we've got researchers, we've got industry here. So like what really are opportunities for all of us groups of people and sectors to really work together to reduce single-use plastics and also recycle plastics?
I can mention something like that. So far, well, this company that we're doing it through, it's limited to only commercial establishments. So far, they are limited by, they're not able to do it residentially, right? Which I'm sure is going to be accounting for a great number of styrofoam that could be recycled. Let's say perhaps in meat or in some sort of meat that you get from the supermarket, it comes in a styrofoam tray, right? So these kind of things are not implemented in the city yet. But if we could get some sort of momentum that could implement that kind of policy to get this sort of recycling, perhaps that could lead us to achieve a zero net carbon emission one day, right? So we need a momentum to get going, I think. And residential recycling of styrofoam could be one of them, I think.
I was just going to say, I think the city is actually piloting a depot drop-off for residents. So again, I think at this point it's limited they don't want egg cartons or meat trays or things like that. They want, if you have a box from your TV that you bought, that you could recycle that styrofoam. But it's great to see that progress. In terms of APRA's messaging and what I like to tell people too, it's just being aware of your decisions from the time you purchase something all the way through until you participate in that recycling and in that blue box system as a resident. And so just really look at wherever the jurisdiction you're in, if it's one of the surrounding communities or Calgary. Now that should change with EPR, with Extended Producer Responsibility. All residents of Alberta should have the same access to recycle the same materials, and that will change over the next kind of 18 months as the program officially rolls out. But always check on your municipal website with what you can recycle, how it should be prepared, and that really helps. So that collection is still an integral part of that Mobius loop and that recycling, and so your participation is really great there. And just thinking about your own choices, if you can reduce the packaging, if you can choose something that has recycled content in the packaging that you're helping drive that system, and if you can choose something that's fully recyclable, with the knowledge that you have and the limited amount of time we all have to make those choices on the 1,000 products that we buy every month. But those are kind of the biggest things that I see as opportunities, and our members are working hard, and we're happy to hear your questions, but we really are trying to take the steps to advance the circular economy for plastics and really trying to bring in as many different groups as we can in that. So we'd love to hear from you and your questions after, and keep up the good work.
I love that kind of empowering yourself and just being aware of what you're using, because I didn't realize that the plastic coffee lids that are not able to be sorted by the City of Calgary facilities because they're too small. So it's something that's got the plastic symbol, like it's recyclable, but then it's not actually. So I think that goes to landfill. So me trying not to, take a plastic coffee lid when I get a coffee to go. But
use your reusable mug.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Championing that way. Rohen, did you have anything you wanted to add to collaboration?
Well, other than to point out that we've got a table of goodies at the back. I printed out some placards to show the structures that make up each of those polymers. So take a look, you'll find at the back that some of the materials look the same, but we can never mix them from a mechanical recycling point of view because otherwise they would be contaminated with different polymers, and that would really complicate the supply chain of recycled materials. And the other thing that I wanted to point out is, as a user of plastics in almost everything we do day to day, we could really help the process, I think, by cleaning our materials properly, especially food packaging items, because often it's the contamination that really complicates the process and is a large cost to actual recycling.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because like for us, like we recycling every day, and the challenge is contaminations. So especially for post-consumer plastic, like people just throwing everything into the bin, right? So they didn't realize like they have to clean it up before they can reuse it. So contamination is a big challenge for recyclers right now.
Yeah, and I think I'm really guilty of not cleaning my plastic before I dump it in the blue cart, and I'm going to blame my husband for that. But there we go. So those are all the questions that I have prepared. So thank you for sharing all that. That was excellent. So we're going to move over to our audience Q&A here. First question here we've got. So what do you think is the biggest barrier or opportunity to increasing the 16% recycling rate of is it collection, resale, or manufacturing?
I can dive in first, but I'll open it. Yeah. The biggest barrier or opportunity, I think having industry's involvement is the biggest opportunity. So there's something called the Golden Design Rules that a lot of plastic company or production packaging companies are getting involved in, so that when they put an item on the market, it's designed to be collected and recycled by the system. And there's, I think, 9 different rules about the things that your product should have or shouldn't have in order to be fully recyclable. So I think industry plays a big role, and I think policy plays a big role too. So we can't rely on consumers to do everything. And as I said earlier, it's a business. And so right now, for example, recycled resin prices are very, very low, but so are virgin resin prices. And the two are very connected. And so we need policies in place that can create some qualities in that system. And we need companies to have a level playing field. So if there's a company like Eric's that manufactures bags and is using recycled content, that might come at a greater cost to him to manufacture his plastics with recycled content. But is there a policy that could come in where recycled content's tied to virgin prices, so that there's some kind of a fair level playing field, so that not everyone that tries to use recycled content is immediately disadvantaged just by cost, let alone, as Eric commented, the design challenges that exist in terms of making sure those plastics have the same characteristics, can stand up to all the things that our packaging needs to be able to do. Food grade is one, that kind of thing. So I think individual actions and policy, and I think for APRA, for us, it's really about uniting that entire value chain and having those conversations and understanding where everyone's pain points are. And I think by doing that and having those focus points will increase the percentage that we're able to recycle, and that circularity metric, if you will.
Most of the labs were still not recycling or taking this styrofoam to the stations, mostly because they were unaware of it, right? So if we somehow make this awareness greater, make everyone aware of it, then the collection could be higher, and perhaps that could make up for the rest of the other areas that are not being as high, right, for the manufacturing or reselling. Yeah, I would say in my case would be the collection and the lack of awareness of the recycling. Yeah.
And actually, so another audience question too is like, what are some of the common plastic items that people might not be aware that are not currently recyclable? So what are people throwing in their blue carts, or that municipal facilities can't really process? Any examples?
Your coffee cup lid was a good one. So generally, anything smaller than the palm of your hand can't be. So if you have a lid on your container that is smaller, put it on the container. They'll capture that as it goes through the system, and they do want to capture those materials. The other example that my friends tell me all the time they throw in is chip bags. That's a multi-material. Some of that is aluminum, right? The outside might look like plastic. If you open it up, it's shiny, it's aluminum. That material is currently not being sorted. But and I was going to say pouches for the most part, but I think with EPR, I think it is their intent, and there's some new technologies that are coming down the line to be able to capture and recycle pouches. So that's another one. Keep an eye on the City of Calgary website, on the municipal site, to find out kind of what's changing with that.
So someone's curious about what are some of the steps to make plastic food grade again? So we're talking about if it's been manufactured for one-time use, like how can we, is that a chemical process, Rohen, that we need to explore, or like how could?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge with going back to food grade is the contaminations and whether or not, if you want to recycle, for instance, polyethylene to make another polyethylene clamshell container, it has to be purely polyethylene going in, no additives, and then polyethylene coming out. So to ensure that process is truly circular is quite challenging, because we just talked about, something as simple as a bottle cap might end its way up into the contamination chain and then basically ruin the whole recycling process.
Definitely a delicate balance, I think.
I was just going to say too, if anyone's confused about when we use the term contamination, we kind of mean that in a couple ways. We could mean it by something that's non-plastic. So think of from your household, if it's peanut butter in the jar or some kind of food that's stuck in that container. And we also could mean it by other types of plastic. So once the sorting goes in, if you have your mixing number was 1 through 7, there's some pretty cool technologies and some laser optical sorters once you're at the recycling level that sort all of those. But once you get past that and you're working on the washing, shredding, and then pelletizing that back into a recycled content, that's when we're seeing issues if there's a mix of plastic sometimes in that space. So the only thing I would add to get to food grade is just kind of better understanding what the requirements are on the end for that to be approved again as food grade, and then trying to keep those closed loops. So pop bottles right now are a perfect example of something that can go from a Coca-Cola bottle right back into a Coke bottle, and trying to keep that as closed loop as possible through our depot systems. But when you get into other things and you don't know if it's been used, what it's been used for, or what kind of materials have been in it, that's where some challenges occur in the recycling process.
So I think I'd want to end with just each of you maybe giving a tip or something like how would you want people to champion, after hearing this discussion today, what do you want people to do? What do you want to take away? So maybe Daniel, I'll start with you.
Yes, well, at least in terms of research facilities, to be aware of how much styrofoam you're using every day, and recycle if possible, if there's stations wherever you're working at, right? So University of Calgary, you have that opportunity. But there's other institutions or other facilities that have not implemented this yet. And in fact, some of them reach out to me asking how did this go and how did I make it successful. Other academic institutions have done so. So perhaps finding the right way of incentivizing this recycling and the positive benefits from it, right? So I would say definitely increase awareness, increase the type of policies that you could implement to do the recycling viable, as well as other institutions following, right? Yeah, I would say.
That's great. Rohen?
Yeah, I'm not a business person, but I think a lot of this boils down to a business case for actually the supply and demands of these various materials coming in and going out. So I think just being more aware of what we're consuming, how we're disposing of those, cleanliness, things like that, I think can go a long way to help the circularity.
So I think plastic is in our everyday life, which we cannot cut it like that, right? But I would say the most important thing is the 3R, how to reduce, how to reuse, and how do we recycle it, and just try to get into the loop. And especially when we buying products, when you see this packaging inside the packaging, that's kind of extra. That's kind of waste, and it's something that we don't need in our society. It's something that we don't need, right, in our life. So yeah, very important. How to choose the product, how to reuse it, reduce it is more important.
Well said. I don't know that I have much to add, except the one thing I think I forgot to mention when I was giving some examples earlier, just really talking to your friends, your family, and businesses that you go to about if there's something that you see that the business isn't doing, maybe they're not recycling, maybe they're providing customers with 1 million single-use utensils, whatever it may be, tell them that you have concerns, because a lot of times I think as consumers and the public, we kind of go into a facility, we come, we go, we do what we need, and then if you think about it, there's thousands of those interactions a day. They might not hear that that's a concern for their customers, or that their customers want that reuse. And so just bringing that up whenever you can, I think voicing your concerns lets them know that it's a priority for their customers, and maybe they'll consider changing or consider different ways to operate.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being part of this panel. I've learned a lot myself. I'm sure our audience has too. I feel really inspired now to see how I champion my own actions in my life to help plastic recyclability. So that's all the time we have. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. Our audience, let's get some clapping going here. It's lovely. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Rohen. This is absolutely fantastic. You can learn about all the initiatives featured in today's discussion in our episode description. And to learn how to move your research impact in the University of Calgary innovation ecosystem, visit ucalgary.ca/innovation. Thank you.